All right, so since this year does not have a lot of movies coming out, one, period, and two, because there's just not a lot of movies that I'm interested in because of the writer's strike, because of the actor's strike last year. For me, it's slim pickings. So this year, I do want to put some content out where I don't know when the next movie in theaters I'm going to see. I don't want to have to wait until Deadpool and Wolverine. So on this channel, I am going to be putting out 10-year anniversary reviews. There's a lot of films that are turning 10 years old this year that I'm very excited about, and some of them I'm not so excited about. Mainly today's review, which is going to be a 10-year retrospective review on Noah, directed by Aaron Aronofsky. So yeah. Okay, so Aaron Aronofsky already had a reputation up until 2014 of making very intense films, but widely considered to be good, including things like The Wrestler and Black Swan. He already got some Academy Award nominations and recognition during that time. So it was definitely drew some interest when he was going to be tackling a subject such as Noah and the Ark, something that normally is seen with very flowery and usually see it in nursery sets and everybody looks really happy. So I was definitely curious, as someone, especially as someone who is pretty open that he was not a believer, what his take would be on it, because most people want to tackle Jesus or something like that, but he wanted to tackle Noah. With that said, with tackling not even a book, but just 4 chapters in Genesis, there is a lot that you are going to have to bake in. Because really those 4 chapters in Genesis really just deal with the inspiration for building the ark, and then basically surviving the flood and what happens pretty much immediately after. So although there's a lot of story there, it would be hard to make a film out of it, and so I can't exactly flag him too much for it. However, the movie is a mess. It just does not hold up for me. It still is just a rough one. Now, full disclosure, I am a believer. With that said, there are other films that maybe don't hold to a particular view that are religious, made by non-religious people, that I do like just fine. My faith doesn't play a factor into me liking this film one way or another. I'm not expecting someone to get it right. It's not a documentary. So with that out of the way, essentially how I feel what works well with this film is that it is shot very beautifully. In terms of going for that dystopian, maybe future, maybe past look, it does do that very well. And I do like the scenes where you see the flood start to happen, the raindrop going on Noah's head and what the flood looks like, things like that. Those work for me. I also do like the fact that what he did with the actual flood and what he did with how the people reacted to it. It wasn't touched on, especially by people of more faith-based backgrounds, and I did appreciate he went far enough. At one point, whenever you see the flood happening, their first night, you essentially hear people banging on the walls of the ark and screaming as they're drowning, and you see the last peoples go away. And I thought it was definitely intense. It was definitely disturbing, as I think it should have been. I feel like he captured that very well. So I have to give him props for that. What didn't work? Quite a bit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad that washes out what good I did like about it. So, for example, the characterization of Noah was, to me, way out of left field. Now, I'm not basing that off of what I personally think Noah was like. I just think that his characterization went just in a completely different direction that it needed to be. So, for example, I felt Noah did just fine being the adamant prophet or character who was going to lead people, mainly his family, to the ark and away from the flood. That I had no problem with. When we see him get on the ark and have this viewpoint of, well, no, he wanted to kill all of man, and he just used me because there's some pollen or something. I'm probably going to sneeze a bunch. But basically, God wanted him, or the creator, as they say, wanted to use him to save the animals as a means of starting the world over with just animals. And then Noah and his family were blessed with the opportunity to die a normal and natural death and not have to drown in a flood. I'm just curious how you get there as that character. I mean, I guess you could say it's like, well, someone from that time would have probably interpreted it that way. I'm like, I just don't, that's not what the creator of this movie was, meaning creator, the God character in this movie, seemed to be implying. At least that's how I would take it. I mean, I figured if I'd live as long as possible until the creator took me out, or they could just save the animals some way. But I guess the creator works in mysterious ways. So also, I have no problem with him going with a pro-environmental message. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with how it was executed. So when you first see Noah, you see one of his sons, I think, pick a flower, and then Noah basically fusses at him and says, you know, where did you find that in the ground? Well, it should stay there. And I'm like, really, a flower? Come on. So, you know, it's basically an anti-consumption message, which I could get behind. And basically, it's the creator of this world. The reason why they're flooding it is because humans have over-consumed and are just consuming indiscriminately, killing animals, things like that. I could get behind that. In fact, like I said, the scene where you see one of Noah's sons interacting with the world and how they act with consuming animals and how they treat people, like, I'm sold on that. I was there with them. I was like, okay, I get it. But when we're looking at, it's like you can't even pick a flower. It's like, how do you do some of the things you're supposed to do? But the biggest part for me that made me realize that this is not a film that's going to work is that when he gets the revelation from the creator, then he is given a seed and essentially plants a massive forest. So the idea is that he can cut down everything. And then build the ark. So this creator, God character, who is upset for humans messing everything up, for consuming everything, and for, you know, laying waste to the earth that he created. The solution is to build a forest for them and cut everything down. You see where there's a problem there. So it's like, first of all, if you have these magic seeds that could essentially make it to where you could plant whole forest again, just do that. Or could the creator of this world do something different? For me, it's just like, if you were going to go the anti-consumption route, that's where it fails. It could have worked, but it should have been done a different way. Also, I feel like when you do something like an anti-consumption message, I think with having, I don't even forget his name, I don't remember his name, I'm not going to Google it, but it's supposed to be the antagonist character who sneaks onto the ark, who goes as far as to say, like, when he has to eat something, he picks a bird, eats its head off or something, and says that's where true strength lies in, you know, eating an animal or whatever. Look up the actual quote. I don't care. But basically, it was just very on the nose, or on the head, if you will. You know, it's like, you shouldn't eat meat. Okay. Again, it's just how you execute that stuff. It became almost as preachy as God's Not Dead, ironically enough. And so nobody likes to be preached at. It's just, how subtle are you in it? And so I don't feel this film was very subtle. I mean, was the scene where Noah's convinced that, you know, his grandchild that is about to be, oh, well, maybe I got to kill the grandchild, you know, that was weird beyond all belief. And no. Was it heartwarming to see him ultimately say, well, no, I'm not gonna obey the creator. I'm going to love my grandchild. I was really sold on it because it wasn't explicit that God told him to do it. He just kind of went crazy. So I don't know. I just feel like this movie, it definitely had some good parts in there, but I ultimately felt like it fell short in a lot of ways. Take a lot of biblical concepts and stories, you could expound on them quite a bit. It just has to work. And I don't feel like it did. It's not even about, I feel like it was disrespectful or anything. It just wasn't done very well. Oh, the other thing, rock giants. Okay. The Nephilim, again, look it up. I'm not correcting myself. The Nephilim is what we're going with. Basically, they made them rock giants. Just listen, do I know what the Nephilim are? Or I think a lot of people don't know what they are. It's supposed to be in context of the Bible. The point is, it's like you just went with rock giants. I guess it fits because they, you know, in the Bible, I think it says something like it took 100 years for them to build the ark, and they make a point to say it took 10 years with the rock giants. So I don't know. I guess that's it. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it. The rock giants look weird and clunky. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling with it. Ultimately, I'm going to give this film 2 beanies out of 5. It was not good. And having watched it recently, my mind has not changed on that very much. Anyway.